Hi, I'm Robin Gully.
I'm John Justin.
We are your Ward 2 council reps here to give the council recap for, what is it, the
The
22nd
22nd
of June,
of June, yep.
2026. So we started off with, as usual, open council work session. And the first thing on our open council work session was a presentation from our not so new finance person. She's been here for a little while,
bit,
Susan
yeah.
Earl, who gave us the 2027 budget preview.
And super high level stuff at this point. And if you do look in the agenda and you see numbers and you get scared, remember that this is the very beginning. It's always a higher number for the change in the levy than what it ends up being. You kind of pull down from the top level down. So I think it's 14%. It's not going to be a 14% levy increase. I promise you that. And this was just kind of getting us up to speed on, some of the department head stuff, some specific things. One of the things that I thought was really cool to see was that actually the cost to do the transition to the city managing the dome rather than paying for an outside manager, when you take all of that and add it up, it's only a $30,000 change for a hugely increased and improved amount of service. That's not me being mean to the management company, but the city's just going to be more efficient with that, and it's going to cross with other things. So that could be some of the best money that we've spent in a long time making this change, in my opinion. I think you're going to see the results really out there.
We also talked about hiring a position at the city that I think a lot of people will be really excited to hear. This position, among other things, would be in charge of making sure that litter gets cleaned up in the city.
That's one of the things we've heard about over and over and over again. And with a huge commercial corridor like Robert Street, you're going to have litter. It's the same in every city with that sort of thing. But this would be a full-time position that, like you said, among other things, would focus on making sure that litter is constantly cleaned up. We've had some great efforts by Councilperson Arman, kind of doing volunteer events to do this. And we'll love to see those volunteer events continue, don't get me wrong, but I think you're going to actually see a real change. And I think it's going to be cool. I think it's a great idea. And it does really improve the way that people feel about the city when they walk around and when they go to stuff. And litter is gross. Yeah. It sucks and we don't like it.
So
nobody likes litter.
Nobody likes litter. So, first of all, don't throw litter.
Yeah, you can start there.
Look for that position to be coming up in our 2027 budget. So we're kind of excited about that. And then we talked about special events and truck permits. Not a lot to say about this. Basically, what we were trying to accomplish was sometimes we don't have clear parameters for when an event needs a permit, and then we end up having to sort of chase people down after events and say you needed a permit. So we're cleaning up the language to make it really clear what triggers a need for a permit in our parks.
Yeah, and then I think it'll be good because the other thing is we don't really have a mechanism right now that if we have an event that is problematic and is not permitted and there ends up being a public safety issue or whatever, we kind of don't have a way to deal with it right now. So this would always also establish that. These reviews of the events would not be done by the city council. We would set up the rules of what we think, but then staff would handle it, so you don't have to worry about, not that I think there would be any bias, but like if somebody on the council doesn't like a particular business or something like that, and not that we would, but there's always that worry. When staff's doing it, it's very clean, and then there would still be an appeals process. So let's say you were like, I went for a permit, staff felt like the event required more security that we were not providing or whatever, you can still come to the city council and appeal it, kind of like what we do with other permits. So I think it's nice and clean, and it kind of fits with the way that we do a lot of other stuff in the city. So I like that a lot. The other thing was food trucks and establishing, and this is really important to me because I like food trucks. They're really cool. I don't want to have any impact at all on our brick and mortar restaurants, almost many which are small businesses that wildly contribute to the community, both in having wonderful food, but also in paying taxes and all the other things. So we're going to have I think it's 100 foot from a building with a restaurant, or the restaurant building. You can't have a food truck any closer than that, even if it's not on obviously the same property, because we really do want to protect our restaurants. They're a huge part of our community, and we don't want them to see any negative repercussions. And again, we do want to have the fun of having food trucks, but we want to do it in a careful and cautious way that supports our longtime businesses and our the newer restaurants that have come to town. So I think we're good there. We'll get the final language on that in a future meeting, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more.
Yep. And then we went on to the council meeting, and the first thing that we did really was an employee recognition of Sergeant Elise Wood. So one of our police officers, she received the 2026 Minnesota Chief of Police Association Meritorious Service Award.
Yeah.
And Chief Sturgeon had a ton of really good things to say about Elise. I think she's worked on a ton of city programming.
The odds that you have never run into Elise are very low. She's in a ton of community events. She's super involved. She was a school resource officer for us and was beloved in that position by the students and the faculty, which is amazing because that can be a contentious position. I've enjoyed working with Elise immensely, and one of the things I didn't mention in the counseling, but I'll mention it here, is what I love about Elise is Elise has point blank asked me questions, and she does not hold back, and she was really looking for the answers about how we feel about policing in West St. Paul, and really asked some probing questions at times when there was maybe a little worry about whether police and city councils were going to be able to get along, and she didn't ever back down from it, and I can't tell you how much I've appreciated those conversations. They're really cool. She's incredibly thoughtful. I think that the whole force, from what I understand, really sees her in an incredibly positive light. She's a really kind of a glue that holds the force together. So, and this is, I think, the first time a West St. Paul officer has gotten this award. So it's not like they hand these out like candy. This is a real big deal.
It's a really big deal.
And we're just obviously incredibly proud of Elise, and well deserved from everything I've ever seen. So
and then we did a proclamation for Parks and Rec Month, and then we had we had one public hearing. It was about Delaware Street reconstruction. So actually, we've talked about this in previous meetings. So you might have heard us talk about this before, but essentially, we're going to be reconstructing Delaware, which of course, has to be a joint project between us and Mendota Heights.
And it's a county road, so there's a lot of entities involved.
So there's a lot of collaboration on this. But there are parts of Delaware we're going to put bike trail, and then we're putting some sidewalk in. And so we went over the project today and sort of where the bike trail and where the sidewalk are going, how wide they're going to be, how wide the shoulders are going to be, where there's going to be parking, not parking. We did have a couple of people come and have comments about it who live on Delaware.
Yeah.
If you live on Delaware and you are getting an assessment, just so you know, our standard practice everywhere in West St. Paul has been to assess 25% of street reconstruction projects to homeowners living on the street. That has always been the case. So, we hope that this isn't something that you encounter a lot. We try really hard to do it well.
Yeah. Nobody likes getting an assessment. I get it. I understand. Nobody wants to suddenly be like, oh, I've got to come up with this money. We do have options to spread it out over property tax over 10 years at a 3% interest rate, which can lessen the burden a little bit. The other thing that I think it got clarified, but I'm not sure if it was in straightforward enough language, and that's not a criticism of anybody, but the trail that's going to be on there will not be assessed to homeowners. So the homeowners are only paying for the road, the sanitary sewer will be our obligation too. And the way this breaks down is actually it's 15% of the total cost, and then that's split between West St. Paul and Mendota Heights. So West St. Paul residents are paying 7.5% of the cost, or West St. Paul is paying 7.5% of the cost. And that's where those assessments come from. And again, every time we have, nobody ever comes in and is like super happy. Oh man, yay, I get to pay an assessment. I get it. And everybody, eventually, every road, everywhere in the city, you're going to have a point where you're going to have an assessment. It's just the way that cities work. And this one apparently kind of got pushed off they first started talking about it in 2018. It's finally coming forward from the county because they had other projects. So And we won't even be doing the final assessment hearings until 2028, so we're going out for bid right now. So those numbers may shift too. I don't think I've ever seen assessment numbers do anything but go down between when we hear about it first and when it actually happens. So hopefully there'll be some efficiencies to pull that number down.
We typically try to give you the worst case scenario so that you end up hopefully feeling a little bit better about it on the back end. We don't want it to go up, so we try really hard to assess or to estimate the assessment at the highest amount that we think it could be, and then often it's lower than
we always hope that it's lower. No guarantees. It could go up. I know how things work. We could have changes in the cost of things, etc.
Inflation is crazy, but we do try hard. And these assessments the hearing for it won't be until 2028. But also, you kind of said this, but just to reiterate, sidewalks and trails are not assessed.
No.
So we have for a long time now in West St. Paul, we've been working to expand our sidewalks, but we don't put that on homeowners.
We used to.
It's such an important public utility.
Yeah, it changed during my time on the council. So it's not ancient history where those sidewalks did used to cost money to the homeowners. And again, our whole thought on this is it is a public benefit. The sidewalk is. It's not just for the people that are there. And so just so you understand, that's
big deal.
I'm glad we did it. It's worked really well, and I think it's been a good idea in general.
So Delaware reconstruction, and then we talked about replacing some of the language in our zoning code, which I will pass to you because
Planning Commission
came from planning.
Yeah. Mostly a lot of it's weird things that were still in the code. Like often we find where like dairy stores, we really don't probably need a dairy store subsection. The big thing idea is that right now, if you look at our zoning code, it's this long list of here's the zone and here's all the things that can be in it. And here's the things that are conditional use for it. We're going to move that into a table that's way easier. So what people can do now is they can look and say, I'm an office building. I can go across this way. I can be in this, and this, and not these other sections, which is much more useful to somebody trying to bring a business to West St. Paul. So that's kind of the goal, is to make it so you aren't having to call your lawyer to look and see if you can make it fit where you want it to fit. And then other changes, mostly cleanup, some reorientation of kind of priorities for some things. This is a good time to talk about the data center thing, because I know that's on top of mind for a lot of people. We have limited the data center to functionally 3 structures. Not the data center. There is no data center coming. But because we didn't want to have no definition of data center, which would give us very little ability to control where it went, we put language in specifically to define a data center, limited to I-2, I think it is, which is literally 3 buildings on the very far end of town. And between you and me, in my opinion, all of which are probably too small to house a data center.
And we were required a conditional use permit.
And it's conditional use permit, and there's screening requirements, and there's a lot of other stuff. So just if you see that we've added data centers, it's not because we're trying to get a data center. We need to have the tools to, if it were to come up, and I cannot commit to anything because that's illegal, but if it were to come in front of the council, we would be able to say, well, here's the thing, only in these spots, you don't quite fit there probably. Also, you have all of these other requirements before we'll even consider granting you a conditional use permit. So we can't legally just say we can't have a data center, is my understanding.
Also,
but we can find a way where, and the risk is low. When I've talked to people, because I did have a lot of people talk to me about this, and they're like, the size and scale and the cost of doing something in an already developed city like we're in, that's why they're putting data centers out in further out places where there's just open fields of open land and they can build to suit. This would push in something where a data center would have to take probably an existing structure and repurpose it, which is nearly impossible, or the cost would be prohibitively high. So if you're concerned about data centers, again, we can't say, no, we're not going to allow any, but we can create a situation where it's fairly unfathomable that it would be possible for it to happen, which is where we're at on this one.
For what it's worth, I've had a lot of people talk to me about data centers here in West St. Paul too. I know you already said this, but just to reiterate there really isn't any place that anyone could put a data center in West St. Paul that would functionally make any sense for a company that wanted to do a data center.
And so we're kind of double covering ourselves. It's already pretty much impossible for them to fit, but now we've limited them to the smallest possible zone that we have, I think, and a zone that
which already has stuff on it.
Which already has stuff on it that is very unlikely to change.
So that's where we are on data centers.
And there was all sorts of, the other thing that we did do, which I really like, is we had a very weird way for used merchandise stores. We had a thing where it was like you could only do clothing and it had to be this small footprint, whatever. And we relaxed that because we've seen some of these, people reuse, recycle the whole idea, right? We want to encourage that sort of thing in the city. It's a really good thing for our kind of green initiative. And also, thrifting is a different thing than maybe people thought about when they wrote this code way back in the day. It's a thing that a lot of people really like to do. And I know that we've had some really successful thrifting style stores come in, and I don't want them to just be like, you can only sell used clothing, because there's lots of, I won't name any of them because I don't want to show any favoritism, but there's lots of really cool places you can go, find some really neat stuff. And I'll tell you, the people running them are often very community minded. And so we basically allowed a much larger expansion of the possibility of those coming in, because I don't think anybody on the council has anything but optimism about how cool it would be to have those things here and more options for people.
Yeah.
So
the last thing we talked about was mayor and council salaries. You may remember this from the last several weeks where we've talked about this. We basically, in order to change mayor and council salaries, so we had a proposal on the table from the Charter Commission that would have increased mayor and council salaries, basically the same cost of living increase that
3%,
staff got. It was 3%.
Didn't go through. Has to be unanimous. Didn't go through.
It was not a unanimous vote, and so now we didn't have any mechanism for even continuing to pay mayor and council salaries
Which
because
would have been
it
a problem.
requires action by the council.
Yeah.
And so this is just quite simply
we'll get paid the same amount for the next 2 years that we're getting paid now. Yes. So it just extends the current pay rate for 2027 and 2028.
That's it. That's all we got.
That's it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.
In a couple weeks.